from across at least 3 continents, despite the terrifying situation that we know is unfolding in India and its neighborhood. I am Indrajit Roy, Senior Lecturer in Global Development Politics at the University of York, and I have the privilege of being one of the co-conveners of this series alongside Rudabe Shahid, also at the University of York and Senior Non-Resident Fellow at the Atlantic Council, Champa Patel, Director of the Asia Pacific Program at Chatham House, and Buddhadev Haldar, Postdoctoral Research Associate at the Reimagining Citizenship Program at the University of York. This webinar series is designed to invite reflections on politics, citizenship, and democracy in the geopolitically, economically, and ecologically fragile South Asian region, whose various countries will begin to celebrate the 75th anniversary of their independence from Britain in the next few months. And of course, Bangladesh has already commenced commemorating the 50th anniversary of its liberation. In this first webinar, we have gathered to reflect on the just concluded elections in the eastern Indian states of Assam and West Bengal and their implications for the entire region. The elections were conducted amidst deteriorating relations between the religious and ethnic communities of the area. Religious polarization between the two principal communities, the Hindus and the Muslims, became acute in recent years and definitely under the electoral campaigning. India's ruling party, the Bharatiya Janata Party, sought to extend its footprint in the region on the back of discontentment among Hindu refugees fleeing religious persecution from neighboring Bangladesh. It successfully defended its state government in Assam, but failed to capture power in Bengal. Despite this, it did register a stupendous increase in both its vote share as well as its seat share in West Bengal. On this webinar, we have the privilege of being joined by experts from and on South Asia, from both sides of the Indo-Bangladesh border, I should add, who will help us reflect on the regional ramifications of the elections and the BJP's electoral performance. And we'll do this through 2 panels. We have Aman Wadud, Kasturi Basu, and Harsh Mandar as our core speakers on the first panel, in which we will discuss the ways in which the results of the assembly elections are likely to shape relations between the myriad ethnic, linguistic, and religious communities of the region. And we have Shoaib Danial, Meghna Guha-Thakurta, and Ali Riaz to discuss the ways in which the results of the elections will influence relations between India and its immediate neighborhood and the broader region. So we have an hour for the first panel, and then we take a half-an-hour break and we reconvene for the second panel. So that's the way we proceed today. So moving on to...
Well, it's never stopped you before.
Okay, barring that minor interruption, apologies. So in this first panel, as I said, we want to think a bit more about the ways in which the results of the assembly elections are likely to shape relations between the myriad ethnic, linguistic, and religious communities of Eastern India. Much has been written and said about the significance of the assembly elections, not just for the 2 states of West Bengal and Assam, but also beyond. So I'm going to ask our first panelists, the panelists on this, on this first panel, why were the elections so significant? And if I could request each of you to respond in about 1 minute each, please. So I'll call on Aman first, then Harsh, and finally Kasturi. Aman, over to you, please. In under a minute, tell us why the elections were so significant.
Thank you so much. With regard to Assam, these elections were significant because the BJP wanted, in their manifesto, they said that they want a correct and they want to reconcile with the entries of the NRC. And before the Chief Minister took oath on 8th of the petition they have filed before the Supreme Court, the state coordinator, they have filed an application for complete re-verification of the NRC. And I believe that this was most significant aspect. I was worrying that if BJP comes to power, this is what they will do. Re-verification does not mean just re-verify, but it means in the political imagination of the BJP, they want to exclude more people. To me, that was the most significant aspect. With regard to Bengal, I think if BJP would have won Bengal, they would have gone with the national NRC. Now I don't think they are going with the NRC. Look at the two paradoxical thing. In Assam, they wanted a so-called correct NRC. In Bengal, they didn't want NRC. In Assam, they were silent on CAA. In Bengal, they were very vocal on the implementation of the CAA. So these are the most significant aspect of this.
Thank you, Aman. Harsh, why were the elections so significant?
I think that we need to understand the significance of this election as a very important milestone in a much older battle. And that battle is the battle by the BJP, its ideological mentors, the RSS, for remolding India into a very different country of unequal citizenship, openly hostile to particularly to its Muslim citizens. And I think that it was, Bengal was a place where Assam, I think Aman has explained why the elections were so important and why they are so calamitous in terms of what the prospects or what is going to happen to the Bengali origin Muslims of the area. But in Bengal, this was a very crucial election, and I think that the very frankly hate-mongering from election platforms, led ably by the Prime Minister and the Home Minister, was a marker of the kind of open war that this government ideologically is waging on its Muslim citizens. And therefore the outcomes, and we'll talk more about it later, were very significant for that larger battle to transform India into a very different nation from the humane and inclusive India that was promised in the Constitution.
Thanks, Harsh. And you're right, we'll come back to some of those themes again. Kasturi, if I could ask you under a minute, tell us why the elections, in your opinion, were so significant. We can't hear you.
Sorry, talking from the perspective of Bengal, these elections were significant, first of all, because in 2019, if you see the Lok Sabha elections, the BJP had for the first time been able to cross the 40% vote share mark in Bengal. It's sort of history that they have made. And they were, at that point, they were leading in 126 assembly seats, going by 2019, 2 years back. Now, that they would grab the principal opposition space in this 2021 elections was almost certain, going by the trajectory. But BJP was not stopping at that. It was making an audacious bid to take over the full government over here. And that was not just rhetorical. If you look at the amount of money that was being spent here, the pliant media, the sort of the use of the ED, CBI, and all the central agencies, and attack on federalism in that sense. And also, if you look at the involvement of not only the Prime Minister, the Home Minister, Cabinet Ministers, several chief ministers of BJP ruled states, and also top RSS and BJP functionaries who had been stationed in Bengal for 6 months. They had booked hotel suites, they were there. They had practically made it their home and managing election affairs. So it was a very serious sort of attempt to take over. So this was significant if you look at it from Bengal, and if you look at it nationally, of course, I mean, because these elections are being held in the Modi 2.0 regime, the second term of Modi. And if you look at the second term of Modi, the one significant factor that comes out is that, on the one hand, RSS agenda, and on the other hand, Adani, Ambani, and the corporate agenda, hand in hand. So, this has totally ramped up, and the steamroller was there. So double engine for me means, one engine is RSS and another engine is Adani, Ambani. So already the double engine Modi 2.0 was on. So these elections were a point to test the electorate, or the people. What's the people's mandate at this point of time? Do they want more of this, or do they want to put a stop on this? So both from Bengal's perspective and also from the national perspective, I think these were a very important set of elections.
Thank you, Kasturi. So that was Aman, Harsh, and Kasturi telling us very quickly why the elections were so significant. For those of you who might be joining us a little later than we started, this is the first of our two panels today. And in this first panel, we have Aman, Harsh, and Kasturi as our core speakers. And in the second panel, which we will have after an hour and a half, we will hear more from Ali, Meghna, and Shoaib. I would request Buddha to paste their bios in the chat box in any case for our audience members, but we will hear more from Ali, Meghna, and Shoaib in the second panel. Okay, so now if I could continue with some of those themes that were introduced by Aman, Harsh, and Kasturi. We've heard a great deal about the significance of the CAA and the NRC in these elections. Harsh, could you tell us a little bit about the CAA, NRC, NPR trio? What is their significance? How does the CAA violate the spirit of the Indian Constitution? And do the results of these elections make any difference? You'll have to unmute.
I was talking about a much older battle, and this being a decisive moment. In fact, it's about 100 years ago that Gandhiji had come in and taken leadership. And central to the idea of India, because it was not just a battle against the British, but also a battle about what country would we build, who would it belong to, who would it not belong to. And central to the leadership of Gandhiji and what was written into the Constitution was this very strong pledge that India would be a country that would belong equally in every way to all who made and chose to make it their country. And people of various religious identities would have equal citizenship. People of different cultures and castes and gender and class and so on. And that was really central to the imagination. It was tested very, very, in a very extreme way during the partition of India. 1 million people lost their lives. 14, 15 million people were displaced, including my own family from Rawalpindi, and it left and rivers of blood flowed, and there was a huge segment of opinion that Pakistan has been constituted for Muslims, so India should be a country of Hindus. And it was very, very significant. Mahatma Gandhi lived for many ideas, but he died for the idea that India would belong equally to its Muslim citizens. And I think that it is in that background that we need to understand the CAA. This is not the First Amendment. I mean, after independence, our citizenship laws said that anyone born in this country would qualify to be an Indian citizen. The movements, the chauvinistic movements that came up in Assam and elsewhere led to the First Amendment in 1987, which said that one parent needs to be Indian for you to be a citizen. 2004, under the BJP regime of Vajpayee, actually a very, very crucial and I feel destructive in a very fundamental way of the idea of India came in, and that said that one parent needs to be Indian. but the other parent should not be deemed to be an illegal immigrant. Means the person can even come from Mars, it's all right. But if the Indian state deems somebody to be an Indian citizen, not only is that person deemed to be not an Indian citizen, but their children will not have the right to be Indian citizens. And so it was a very, very devastating, and they didn't come back to power in 2004, and I think they bided their time. And so you need to understand the CAA in terms of, for the first time, it created different eligibilities for Indian citizenship based on religious identity, excluding particularly India's Muslims. Now, it could be argued, and the BJP leaders argued that this is just a humane measure for persecuted people in other countries. But if it was persecuted people, then there was, the Rohingya in Burma, the Ahmadiyas, for instance, in Pakistan, all of them, and atheists actually in many places and so on, are persecuted and should have, but it was a very, three Muslim majority countries. Afghanistan doesn't even share a border with India, was specifically identified. And I think that, and the Home Minister kept saying, we will first have, and remember the chronology, we'll first have the CA, then we'll have a national register of Indian citizenship and the NPR. And if I'm running out of time, just tell me, because it's a long story. But what this really meant was that we will first create a pathway to protect all non-Muslims who are unable to prove their citizenship through documentation in the NRC process, because through the CAA. So effectively, the only community, and we have 200 million Muslims in India. We're the second or third largest Muslim population country in the world. And basically the idea was to keep them in a state of almost perpetual fear and insecurity about whether they would be recognized as citizens in this country. We're not even, importantly, not even negotiating an extradition treaty with Bangladesh. So even the so-called, 2 million illegal immigrants that have been, left out, there's no question that they're going to be sent to Bangladesh unless we go to war with them. And detention centers, are we going to create concentration camps for literally millions of people? So basically what will happen is that they would be reduced, firstly placed in for perhaps a generation in fear and insecurity, and then would be reduced to second-class citizens, stripped of rights as equal citizens. And it's a terrifying prospect, yes.
Yeah.
And that is really what the battle is about.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I want to hear a little more about that, the end game subsequently, but we'll sort of come to that. I want to, at this stage, hear a little more about the situation in Assam. Aman, you told us the new chief minister has said that the NRC will be re-evaluated. Now, what does that mean? And how is it likely to affect different groups in Assam? And are there any specific communities that are likely to be affected more than others? And if so, how? So tell us a little more about Assam.
Aman, you're muted.
Sorry.
Yes.
The second question and the third question is almost similar. So let me explain a bit about the NRC. In 2014, when in 2013 actually the process started, and 2015 the application process started. 17 December 2014 the judgment came, and it said that it actually supported the idea that there is large-scale illegal migration in Assam. The Honorable Supreme Court order quoted Sri Prakash Jaiswal's statement, where he said that there are 5 million illegal migrants in Assam. but it did not quote it, the clarificatory note which the same minister issued the next day in the floor of the Rajya Sabha, where he said that these are not based on any empirical data. They're just hearsay statements. That was not quoted. The Honorable Supreme Court heavily quoted Sarvando Sonowal judgment, which was basically on the report submitted by the then governor of Assam, S.K. Sinha, which is a completely bigoted and communal report, wherein it said that the Muslim-dominated districts of Assam will one day demand to merge with Bangladesh. 24 years down the line, there is no such demand. In my lifetime, I sincerely hope there will be no such demand. I always give one example, although there are, it goes without saying that situation will never come. But 3 years ago, where on Independence Day, in the Dhubri district, there was one little boy who was saluting Indian national flag, neck deep. He was 9 years old. And these are the area which S.K. Sinha said that will one day merge with Bangladesh. So the entire Muslim community supported the NRC after the process started, because there was no other way. Community leaders also thought that this is the better option, because the other two so-called detection process by the border police and the election commission is completely arbitrary, random, and they do not follow any due process. They randomly accuse people of being illegal migrants, so much so that they also accused Indian army officers like Sanaullah and Ajmal Haq also of being illegal migrants. There are other Indian army officers also. These are in a big name. That is why we all know the name. But each and every case that I have come across, that I have fought, there is no investigation whatsoever. So we thought that this is a process monitored by the Supreme Court. So let us take part in it, and all citizens have to submit that document, because everyone has documents, so there is no problem. So the process was harsh, of course. It was clumsy, but the community volunteers, they also, most of them, they try to support the people, but people who are unlettered, they went through lots of problems with documentations, to find documents, to run from one office to another. So the entire process was very stringent and very harsh. After the application were submitted, then come the verification and the re-verification process. Several rounds of verification. Some people, I know some people who went some 7-8 times. They sold off their land, they sold off their cattle, they sold off everything. In the entire NRC process, they are reduced to zero completely. They have sold off everything. I will just mention one incident because of paucity of time. On 5th of August 2019, this is like 25 days before the final list was out. The people from my area, Goraimari Suntuli, the Kamrup rural district, around 15,000 people, they received a notice. Like 7 to 15 hours later, they will have to appear in district in Upper Assam, Golaghat, Sibsagar, Jorhat, which is like 450 to 500 kilometers away. Overnight, they had to, again, sell their ornaments, their cattle, everything. It was before the Bakri, they also sell their cattle, their lifetime earning, everything, and they hired the vehicle and went there. They made with an accident. At midnight, I got a call that there is an accident. I ran there. I didn't find people there. They went to, they was taken to Guwahati Medical Care Hospital. What happened is that the bus which was going, and from other side, one truck was coming with molten tar. So that truck went upside down, and entire molten tar went inside the bus. So when we went there in Guwahati Medical College Hospital, there was a woman with 3-year-old daughter, and she was crying, saying that what will happen to my NRC the next day. All these people who made with an accident, some people received notice later on, and their name is there, but a lot of people's, their names are not there in the NRC. Now, these are the verification and re-verification process which went on. 31st August 2019, the final list was out, where 1.9 million people were excluded. And these 1.9 million people, most of their parents are in the list. Now, all this while, the groups, the BJP or the cohorts who wanted a NRC, after the list was out, they started saying that we don't accept this NRC. This NRC, we are not happy with this NRC, or we are not satisfied with this NRC. So since then, there was a clamor that there should be a re-verification. We do not accept this NRC. And that is how the process went on, where the BJP in its in its manifesto said that, we want a correct NRC, and subsequently after the government came to power, the state coordinator filed an application before the Supreme Court for a complete verification. Although the Chief Minister said that we will re-verify 10% in the border district and 20% in the border district and 10% in the other district, but he filed an application for complete re-verification. Now, when that
could you sort of wind up now, because we'll
Yes.
come back to some of those details later.
Yes, yes. So let me conclude. So now when the entire community supported this NRC, because we wanted a closure, so many people suffered. People committed suicide. People made with an accident where they were going for verification. People suffered from indignity. They suffered every kind of suffering they went through. Now again, this government want to reopen this NRC, and they want to re-verify it just because they are not happy with it, completely undermining the process they themselves, the BJP government, have undertaken. They themselves executed the process under the monitoring of the Supreme Court. Now they have come around and said that we want to re-verify the NRC. So in a way, we as a community feel that we have been betrayed, because re-verification will not just re-verification. They want more exclusion.
Exactly, and I think those are some of the sort of thoughts I would like you to sort of reflect on further, if possible. But I want to bring Kasturi into the conversation now in terms of the situation in West Bengal. Of course, the BJP had promised to implement the CAA on the very first day if it were elected, but we know it's been decisively defeated. Can West Bengal now heave a sigh of relief? Do you see the CAA will be put on the back burner? Or is there a worry that the BJP emerging as the opposition party will keep the issue alive?
Okay, so since Harsh has already talked about the history of the various CAAs, I'll actually talk about the CAA a little bit from the perspective of the Bengali Hindu refugees, who are the BJP's vote bank in Bengal. Okay, so the people whom they want to lure with the CAA in Bengal. And then I'll answer your question. So like Harsh said, there was a pre-story to the CAA 2019. There was the CAA 2003. Very important to note that the CAA 2003 for the first time in Indian law introduced the words illegal immigrants. The word illegal immigrant was not there in Indian law before that. So as you know that, we are a land of partition. Both Assam and Bengal have seen partition, and our people have been divided. So when you sort of put this tag of illegal immigrant on people, saying that, if you are born in India, that's not enough. One of your parents have to be an Indian citizen, and the other will not have to be, will have to prove that he or she is not an illegal immigrant, which means you're requiring both parents to prove by papers, their belongingness in India. It basically, deprives most of the refugee families who have come into India undocumented when they came, and later on they acquired documents as they became natural citizens here. Because when people are fleeing from a riot, or they're fleeing from partition, or they're fleeing from real fear of persecution, they don't have time or the resources to get visa and all these papers, right? My own father, I can tell you, he migrated in 1965. It was after the Hazrat Bal riots. He was an engineering student in Dhaka. He was from Chittagong. And he just saw a lot of riots around him. None of his family was directly touched, but he had fear, and he just came into India. And since then he was a citizen here, So he asks me now, he's 78 years old. He asks me that what proof do I have to furnish to the state of India of my fear in 1965? That I was fearing for my life, and there's no proof of that, right? So now, if you look at CAA 2003, the Bengali Hindu refugees have been protesting it ever since 2003, ever since the Vajpayee government brought it, because it affected them directly. How does it affect them? You go to the border districts of Bengal. If I make a passport application, the amount of questioning I have to face, and if a certain person belonging to the border districts of Bengal applies for a passport, the questions that they have to face are totally different. So they are persecuted in that way, although they have ration cards and voter cards and everything. So now what they were hoping is that the CAA 2019, from their perspective, would take away that illegal immigrant tag. But if you read carefully the CAA 2019, even for the Hindu refugees of Bengal and Assam, it doesn't take away any tag. It actually puts on a lot of, what do they call, conditions. You know, you have to prove you have to furnish paper proof of your religious persecution. You have to furnish proof of your religion. How do you prove you're a Hindu on paper? You just saying it is not enough. So, you know, all these things, and proof of your migration also, you know, nobody has those proofs. So they wanted, what they wanted from their perspective was unconditional acceptance into the citizenship, you know, equal citizenship, but they have not been given that by the CAA 2019. So now, you know, gradually when the movement, the anti-CAA and anti-NRC movement in Bengal tried to explain this to them, it's very hard to explain because BJP leaders, they create a lot of obfuscation. They will tell you what they will tell you, I'm telling you, they'll say that the main law doesn't even mention the word religious persecution, but there's something else. If you read carefully the fine print of the law, there's a statement of objective and purpose, which mentions the Passport Act of 2015, which mentions religious persecution, which means, you know, in a roundabout way, they do have to furnish that. Now, the question that these people are facing is that if I apply for citizenship in CAA 2019, I will self-declare myself as a foreigner, right? Suppose you were to apply. So you're self-declaring yourself to be a foreigner. Then what happens to your application? There is no guarantee that you will be accepted. So they are putting their entire generations in future into jeopardy, which they are not willing to do. Which is why the BJP keeps telling them that, no, we'll bring the CAA rules, wait for the rules and you'll see. You know, it's just instant, like instant Maggie or something like that. But now you see how the BJP has put itself into a trap. Now to come back to your concrete question, you know, if the BJP now frames the CAA rules in Bengal, or they can't do it for Bengal, they have to do it for entire India, then, you know, the bluff of the unconditional citizenship that they were promising to the Motuas and the Rajbongshis will be out in the open. They can't give unconditional citizenship, right? So how will they manage them? And how will they manage the Hindus of Assam, the Hindu Bengal origin Hindus of Assam, who have also been hoping that, you know, BJP will give some kind of unconditional citizenship. So they will not be able to manage it. And on the other hand, if the BJP puts the CAA on the back burner, then they will never get those Namashudro and Rajbongshi votes again. They will require those votes to win Lok Sabha seats in 2024, but they won't get it again because if they keep delaying it, like, you know, like they have again applied for, if you look at the May 13th, I think it came out in the papers that they have again applied for a longer time period to frame CAA rules. It's been 1.5 years, they haven't been able to frame CAA rules, right? So if they keep delaying it, you know, till 2024, they will have to, you know, lose this vote bank that they have created just by, you know, this CAA trophy that they were promising. So which is why the BJP, whether it keeps it on the back burner, keeps delaying, or they try to frame some sort of a rules, both ways, they will, people will see through it. At least from the Hindu refugee point of view, they will see through it because they can't deliver what they have promised. So that's what I feel.
Thanks, Kasturi. I think that's a very somber sort of note to hear from West Bengal. We're coming to the end of this round of sort of conversations, and then we'll invite audience questions. But you know, to conclude, Aman, if I could just ask, you know, in about a minute, if you can tell us what the social consequences of the BJP's victory in Assam is. If you just can give us very quick thoughts.
The person who became the chief minister, he brought a theory of clash of civilization. He gave this idea of 35% versus 65%. 35% is the Muslim population of Assam. He said that, you know, these modern Mughals are making inroads in all walks of life, and if we can fight them for 5 years, then we can defeat them. He almost in every election campaign, he said that we don't want votes of Mia, who they are regarding as Bengali Muslims. In the manifesto, they also say that BJP's manifesto, they also say that we want to bring policy to de-radicalize. They say that we want to bring formulate policy to stop land jihad and love jihad. So this is the the election plan that on which BJP came to power, it was a completely polarized election. They won on polarized electorate. Whenever there is a polarization, what impacts the most is the fraternity. When there is no fraternity, there is no equality, there is no liberty. As it is said that one who has the power has the liberty and maybe the dignity. So it will of course impact the community. And like I say, in the political imagination of BJP, it is the Bengali Muslims who are the illegal migrants. And when they have already filed an application before the Honorable Supreme Court for a complete re-verification of the NRC, so they will target only one community. But I sincerely hope that Honorable Supreme Court do not allow this mockery to happen again. Do not, because re-verification, if it happens, they will snatch away almost all right from us. In a way, if they snatch away citizenship from us, that is like taking away all right from us. And if I may say that they will snatch away the constitution from us. So that will be the impact. That might be the impact if re-verification happens. I sincerely hope that Supreme Court will not allow this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aman. Thank you. Again, a very somber note from Assam. Kasturi, you were, of course, very active in the No Vote for BJP campaign. And, the BJP lost, as we saw. But it's, increased its vote share, it's increased its seat share. Again, similar to the question I asked Aman, what do you see as the social consequences of the BJP's meteoric rise in West Bengal? If you could very quickly, tell us in a minute or so.
Right. So, so if you look at the BJP vote share, like I was saying, it was 10% in 2016. Then it went up to 40% in 2019, and now it's 38%, close to 38% after 2 years. And they have won 77 seats, which may come down to 75 because 2 of their legislators have resigned. So the thing is, as you can see, there is a lot of polarization in Bengal. Previously, I mean, I'm not trying to claim that Bengal was a place where, there was no enmity or no friction between Hindus and Muslims. Of course, we have seen partition, there's a legacy of it. They've always been a divided society, but not in the terms of, openly, people talking openly on communal lines. Communal rhetoric as part of the elections was not the norm in Bengal. That's something that the BJP has introduced. Now, if the BJP, since it has taken over the entire opposition space, and this is significant because the left parties and the Congress are totally, moved out of the opposition space. So it's now the TMC and the BJP, right? So the TMC is with the big mandate and the BJP is the entire opposition space. Now, as we know, in electoral politics, the opposition often dictates the discourse of the political discourse. The way they oppose the government also sets the political discourse. So if it is left to the BJP alone, dictating, the discourse, then of course we will see more and more communal polarization. We will also see the TMC trying to pretend to be more Hindu, trying to say that, yeah, we are the better Hindus, we are the biggest Hindus, just like what Arvind Kejriwal and AAP and all of these people are doing, and also in Maharashtra, the Congress is doing, all of them are trying to say we are the better Hindus, we are the biggest Hindus, the good Hindus, and so on. So this will go on. But what I want to mention here is two things. One is one should also look beyond the BJP. The social ramifications will also come from what the RSS and the VHP is doing in Bengal. If you notice that the RSS and the VHP, which are the backbone of the BJP, they have focused on 2 regions right now. They're very focused on Kerala and they're very focused in Bengal. They have declaredly, put all their resources, their masterminds, a lot of the senior leaders are working here. And they're trying to do all that work. So that work will find a lot of support from all these, 75 BJP MLAs hovering around with their central security protection, Y category, Z category, and all that. So that has to be that we will see in future in the coming years. We'll see a lot more of RSS and VHP activities. We'll also see a lot of communal rhetoric and TMC trying to pretend it's Hindu and all. But it also all depends on the other actors. BJP is not the only actor, so there are other people there. There is a long tradition of left movement in Bengal. There is a huge tradition of civil society movements and mass movements, and outside the electoral arena also, like the No Vote to BJP campaign that you mentioned was totally outside the electoral arena. We were not within the election ring, but we were trying to influence the elections. So all of these people will have a responsibility to check both of these things. On the one hand, the RSS and the BHP, trying to social engineer, and on the other hand, the rhetoric should not slip into the communal direction. It should be brought back to the direction of struggles for dignity, lives, and livelihood. So it's not just, we are out of agency. We do not have any agency. We're just spectators or watching from the sidelines. We will not watch from the sidelines. And the amount of effort that all these other forces will put into this and take it very seriously will determine, of course, which way it will go.
Thanks, Kasturi. That's a hopeful note from West Bengal, despite the challenges. Harsh, in about a minute, tell us how hopeful or anxious are you about what you've seen about the BJP's electoral performance in Eastern India. In about a minute, tell us your hopes and anxieties. You'll have to unmute.
Yeah, Indrajit, BJP's electoral success is one part of the story. The inroads of the RSS and the VHP, it's a battle of hearts and minds. In that, I think they have gone very much further, and we're seeing the erosion of the whole idea of India. I made in a very brief time. So let me just say that when the anti-CAA protest started the first day, the day after the students were beaten up in Jamia Millia University, and the students were very anguished. And many people called me and said I should speak. And I said 2 or 3 things, and I thought I'd answer your question that way. That the battle is not against a 1,000-word law, which is the CAA. The battle is about what kind of country do we want to leave for our children? Who will it belong to? Who will it not belong to? And it's a very and it's about also our Muslim brothers and sisters. I said to them that let no one ask you to prove your love and loyalty for this country. In fact, the rest of us, including myself, we who are non-Muslim, we had no other country to choose. So we are Indian by chance. Your parents and grandparents actually chose India, so you are Indian by choice, and so on, and much else. But I also talked about the importance of non-violence, and that hate can never be fought with more hate; it can only be fought with love. But the most important thing, I think, was the idea that the resolution of who this country will belong to and who it will not belong to will not happen in Parliament. Our political opposition has not shown the moral courage. It's not going to be resolved in courts because we have not seen the robust defense of minority rights by the Supreme Court in recent years. It will be decided finally by we, the people of India, on the streets. But I said there's a 4th place where this battle will most be resolved. And that place is your hearts and mine, whether we've allowed the hatred that is being spewed and normalized over these last many years, whether we've allowed it to get colonized in our hearts or whether we throw it out. And I think the anti-CAA protests, people talk about whether it's been crushed. I think it is a singular success because it's the largest movement for Hindu-Muslim unity, for unity of all people since Mahatma Gandhi's assassination. Large numbers of people came out, young people came out in universities. I was moving around those 100 days all over the country. And the reclaiming of the constitution, the national flag, and the national anthem. This is really the battle, and I'm not despairing, but I'm worried about this juggernaut. And I do believe that it is a second freedom struggle, because the freedom struggle was not just against British colonialism, but also about what country we would leave to our children. And I think every second Indian today is below the age of 25, and primarily they will have to decide, and they will have to fight.
Thanks, Harsh. Again, I think it's a set of observations to ponder on, and which will have implications, whether we like it or not, on India's immediate neighborhood and its relations with the other countries and regions. And that's of course a theme that we will approach in the second panel much more clearly and explicitly. I'd like to thank all three of you for your observations and your interventions, which have generated a number of questions from our audience. And I'd like to pick up some of these questions and put them to you. Predictably, a number of the questions are around Assam. Of course, I will direct them towards Aman. And there are a couple of other broader questions which Harsh or Kasturi may want to come in. So Aman, we have an audience member who wants to know about the human rights protection that could be given to people in Assam. What do you do when you have illegal immigrants, or they say illegal immigrants, within quotes? If there is a problem of illegal immigrants, or if there's a problem of immigrants, what do you actually do? Is there something that we can do, both for the immigrants as well as for indigenous communities in Assam who may or may not be, overwhelmed? So I don't know if you want to take that.
So protection in the sense, see, there is a process of accusing people of being illegal migrants. There are border police who randomly accuse people of being illegal migrant. Like I said, Muhammad Sanaullah, who is an army officer, the day he was accused of being illegal migrant, he was on duty for a counter-insurgency program called Hifazat. So basically, when he was securing his country, he was accused of being an illegal migrant by the Assam Border Police Organization. Election Commission, who randomly mark people as doubtful voter. And these two, Assam Border Police and Election Commission, they send the case to the SP border of the respective district, and SP border referred the case to the Foreigners Tribunal. So tribunals are the cases who adjudicate the cases of so-called illegal migrants, and they send notice to these peoples. Now, before the Foreigners Tribunal is where you get support. Lawyers like me who fights their cases. There are many lawyers who are fighting cases. So tribunal, at one point of time when I started litigation here in 2014, by the end of 2013, I saw that the tribunals were more liberal. They were not very arbitrary. They were fair. But subsequently, when the BJP government came to power, it became very arbitrary. And now I won't go much into it because of paucity of time. But for minor anomalies, for spelling mistake, even typographical error can cost you citizenship. Almost wiped out your existence. Your name will be there only in the border police register. So what you can help, I don't know. I mean, how you can help, but of course you can talk about it. How Foreigners Tribunal, how arbitrary they are. There are, Amnesty has come up with a report. A lot of people have written articles, including me. So I don't know with regard to what human right support can you give, because at a time when the peoples are denied the basic constitutional right, right to fair investigation and fair trial are part of fundamental right, which is being denied here. And once are you declared as foreigner through this arbitrary process, you fear the risk of getting detained. Now, there was a scenario of indefinite detention in Assam. Since 2010, people were being detained; they were not being deported. Till now, apparently, only 7 people have been deported to Bangladesh. I wonder where they find 7 people. 135,000 people in this time have been declared as foreigner, and they have deported only 7 people. Now, when you detain people, right, that is not a part of a penal consequence. You detain people to deport to the country of origin. Which is the country of origin? When you declare your own citizen as foreigner, how do you deport that person? Mr. Harsh Mander, he went to the Supreme Court challenging indefinite detention and to humanize the condition of indefinite detention. He was thrown out as a petitioner because he filed a recusal application to remove Justice Gogoi. But then, as a so-called Balance Act, Supreme Court said that there is a limitation cap that people who are detained for more than 3 years, they will be released. Last year, we went to the Supreme Court and reduced that period to 2 years. But there is still around 450 people in detention centers without any prospect of getting deported. So these are the conditions where where people who are actually accused of being illegal migrant go through. In the last 3 years, 30 people have died in detention center. Each and every dead body has been handed over to Indian family, right? Bottom line is that Indian citizens are being declared as foreigners. These are not illegal migrants. Indian citizens are being declared as foreigners.
Thank you. And I think it does bring us back to the point that was made earlier about how there is this entire exercise of labeling people illegal immigrants, putting them into detention centers, deporting them, but without any extradition treaty in place. And in a large scale sort of, when you think about the end game of the BJP, where does this all end? Okay, you identify X million people as illegal immigrants. And then what do? The words detention, deportation are thrown around, but there has to be a destination that the deportation will happen, and the destination.
Can I just add one line? Can I just add one line?
Yes, please go for it.
So Bangladesh do take back people who are convicted as foreigners, right? Convicted means under Passport Act, who overstay here or who actually illegally migrated here. They are not tried by the Foreigners Tribunal. They are tried by the Judicial Magistrate Court. So in the last 3 years, in the petition that Mr. Harsh Mander filed, the government have filed an affidavit saying that we have deported 162 people, right? So Bangladesh will take back only if it is their citizens.
Yes.
But to deport declared foreigners, the Bangladesh need to confirm their country of origin. Now, when the country of origin is India, how do you expect Bangladesh to confirm their nationality?
Precisely. Yes, and it's ridiculous to expect anyone to sort of take on this sort of responsibility. We have a question around the performance of the BJP in the elections, and despite the warning not to think about the BJP as the sole actor, but there's a wider Hindu right-wing ecosystem. Of course, the question of the BJP still remains important. So let me put it up to both of you, Aman and Kasturi. The BJP ran similar campaigns in both Assam and West Bengal. They were full of communal hate, violence, etc. Why, in your opinion, did the BJP succeed in Assam and fail in West Bengal? I don't know, Kasturi, do you want to go first, and then we'll come back to Aman? Very briefly, though, because we will have to wind up in 7 minutes.
My understanding is that BJP got the advantage of being in the government in Assam and controlling the state machinery, which is why they did some social welfare programs over there, which earned them some sort of dividends and all. And also, the unfortunate thing was that these two parties that came up, the Raijar Dal and the Assam Jatiya Porishad, the ones that came out of the anti-CA movements, had they formed a coalition with the anti-BJP broader alliance or some sort of a seat sharing adjustment, talking electorally, of course, the results could have been different. Also, there was probably the need for reaching out for probably the AIUDF to reach out to the Hindu refugees and because there's no party representing the BJP's captive vote bank, the Hindu refugees of Assam, right? So there's nobody representing them. So that sort of unity needs to be breached in future. The people who are sincere about these issues, because these are tied together. So, like I said, sooner or later the CAA will fall flat on its face. Once they form the CAA rules, the Hindu refugees will finally understand it's not for them. It's not giving them anything. So at that point of time, there is need to build that bridge, which was perhaps missing in this election. If that was there, results could have been different. And as far as Bengal, there's nothing much to rejoice, because after all, they've done well and they're a principal opposition and all. But I think in future, we also need to, if we want to really reduce the BJP's vote bank over here, and if we really want to restrict the RSS PHP penetration, we have to reach out to its core vote banks, who are the people whom they have captured sort of, and how have they, because they don't have anything to offer to anyone actually, if you really look at it. I mean, it's not like they're offering anything to the marginalized Hindus. So we do have to, cross that mental barrier and reach out to those people and sort of forge unity between people. Otherwise, there's not much to rejoice. I mean, of course, they haven't been able to take over, but they have emerged as the principal opposition. And the RSS is also quite spread out. So it's a reason for concern.
Absolutely. And it's the broader point that you made earlier about the wider Hindutva ecosystem really sort of branching.
Yeah, I mean, they're running right now, they're running 180 Saraswati Vidya Mandirs in West Bengal. They're running 2,500 Ekal Vidyalayas, which is a one teacher, 2-hour school. They have been creating a big network with environmental NGOs. They've been trying to get into organic farming. They've been trying to get into the syllabus and the texts and manipulating those things. So it's a multi-pronged. RSS, it's like an octopus. It has so many wings. So it's very difficult. They're always beyond the surface, and nobody talks about them. Nobody is willing to discuss them. They also have people in all parties, embedded in everywhere. So this is very hard to fight. So this is the real place that we have to fight, and the real bridges need to be made between the people left out, the people who've become captive vote banks of this nasty force.
Thank you. Aman, did you want to offer any thoughts on why the BJP may have succeeded in Assam but failed in Bengal? Very quickly. I know you've spoken a lot, but
the stand was similar, but the ground realities are different. In Bengal, they had Mamata Banerjee as a strong personality. In Assam, the Congress and AUDF was in alliance with left parties and of course BPF, but there was no one like Mamata to take on the BJP. So one of the most important factor why BJP did well in Assam, of course, it polarized the electorate, and it polarized because AUDF was in with alliance with Congress, and there was a fear mongering going on. It's going on since AUDF came into existence, that if you vote for the BJP, the Ajmal will come to power. Do you want to vote for Ajmal? Do you want to see this person? Even the former chief minister went on to say that he is enemy of Assam, Badruddin Ajmal. So I think these are the most important factor why they could succeed in polarizing the electorate and win these elections.
Thanks, Aman. We have one last question, which I'm going to direct to Harsh, and then we will have to close after that. Harsh, this is a question around the Foreigners Tribunal. Its functioning has been criticized on many grounds. And what, in your opinion, can be done to reform it? Why is it not statutory, for instance? So if you have any thoughts on what can be done to reform it, again, very quickly, please, if you could.
Yeah. See, the first thing that you need to reform it is the will to reform it, and we're seeing a situation where where do you turn to if the Supreme Court itself turned around on its head the whole question of burden of proof. I mean, normally you're guilty unless you're innocent till you're proved guilty, and the burden to prove that you're guilty has to vest with the state. Here, you are a foreigner until you prove yourself to be an Indian citizen, and by a very complex and difficult process. And then that is then looked at by these tribunals. And the qualifications of people for these tribunals are really problematic. Anyone with a law degree, etc., a young person, and increasingly they're finding that they're appointing people who are ideologically compatible with the BJP, who are coming into these positions. And how do you reform it if this has been brought to the notice of the Supreme Court several times, and the Supreme Court supports it and enables it? So now that they're going to grow into maybe 1,000, they've talked about 1,000 foreigners tribunals. Where are they going to find the people? So if they're going to person them with their cadres with bias, then I think the battle is much more fundamental. And although nobody asked, this is this is the prospect of what is going to happen in the rest of India. This is very, very fundamental to the transformation that they're talking about. Is that if they will at some stage go in for a national register of Indian citizens, and what the Assamese Muslim community has gone through, every Muslim will feel similarly challenged to prove their citizenship. It's going to create turmoil. It's going to I think we are manufacturing something much worse than the Rohingya crisis. Manufacturing not statelessness, but contested statelessness, contested citizenship on a scale, and with a targeting of people of a particular identity, which is the whole point of India's entire freedom struggle just collapses when you do that.
Thank you, Harsh. I think that leads very directly onto some of the discussions that we will have in the second panel, which Rudabe will lead with Shoaib, Meghna, and Ali. I think the plan is to, of course, thank you, Harsh, Aman, and Kasturi, for your very valuable interventions in this first panel, and to our audience for their questions. We plan to take a half-an-hour break and reconvene to go on to our second panel, where we will be thinking about how the results of these elections will influence relations between India and its immediate neighborhood. We don't often think about domestic elections and foreign policy, at least in the context of South Asia. But this is something we cannot ignore in the present context. So we take a half-an-hour break and we reconvene, and my colleague Rudabe will take over from there. I hope that's all right. So we'll see you soon.